Hey everyone, and welcome to episode number 32 of The Kickabout with me, Chris, and as always, Dan and Fran are with us.
Oh, yeah.
Hi.
Right, so, well, I did say last week that this week's episode could be delayed or cancelled because of impending baby. Well, here we are on due date, still no sign of baby, so I have to say props to my little girl for letting me carry on recording. And I don't, is there anything else to touch on? I don't think there is. I think that it's, I was going to talk about the England squad straight off the bat, but let's not deviate from tradition. Let's get involved with the stat first, shall we? And the stat man. I don't want to throw you out, Dad. Let's just stick with it.
Mate. Appreciate it. It was a bit of a slow day for stat questions, to be honest. I wanted to go with one for the Chelsea-Arsenal game, but there just weren't really any interesting ones.
Chelsea-Arsenal game?
Sorry, it's because the stat I've gone for is Chelsea. I meant West Ham Arsenal. So the stat this week is Chelsea have progressed to their 25th FA Cup semi-final. Only the fourth team to reach that many. But which three other teams have reached more FA Cup semi-finals?
Oh. And this is in all of football history, I guess, because the FA Cup goes back a long time.
Yeah, in football history.
Damn. Okay. All right. Well, we will find out the answer to that later on. As I was alluding to there, we are just going to quickly, before we get on to the chat and the weekend's games in the Premier League and the FA Cup, let's just touch on the England squad announcement that was last week. What do we think of that? It was obviously the biggest story is probably that Trent Alexander's not in the squad. And whilst he hasn't had the best of seasons, were you surprised that he didn't make the squad?
Yeah, I was surprised, to be honest, especially as we're getting towards the Euros now. I would assume that Trent is going to be going to the Euros, so you'd think he'd be getting the players together that he's going to be taking with him. I don't really think we're at the point where he needs to be experimenting, but...
No, I mean, we do obviously have, quite a lot of injuries. We've seen Lingard recalled, Luke Shaw recalled, and we've also seen Ollie Watkins get his first senior call-up instead of Patrick Bamford, which appeared to be the dilemma between the two. I guess, as you say, with the Euros coming up, this is a good opportunity for people like Jesse Lingard and Ollie Watkins to stake a bit of a claim here.
Yeah, 100%. I'm looking forward to seeing Ollie Watkins if he gets a shot. We've got 3 games, so I'm assuming he'll rotate it quite a bit.
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, I'm looking at that squad and I'm thinking to myself, right, what would be the starting lineup? I mean, in my opinion, I think he will go with Nick Pope. I think that will be it'll be either him or D Henderson. I don't think it'll be Sam Johnston.
No, I wouldn't be surprised if he played Sam Johnston against San Marino there.
Yeah, possibly. Although Albania are hardly, well, in theory anyway, they shouldn't be particularly more difficult than San Marino for a team of England's quality. Although that would be very much
it now, haven't you?
famous last words there for sure. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. You would think he would go 3 at the back against Albania and San Marino.
Yeah, probably he does favour the 3-4-2, whatever it is, 5 at the back, isn't it, with wing backs?
Yeah. So with that in mind, who would your 3 centre backs be?
Oh God! Don't ask me that.
It'd probably be Stones, Maguire, and Kyle Walker, to be honest.
Kyle Walker.
Yeah.
Just for that pace. I mean, I'd have him on the outside, but I would just have him as like the sweeper, because Maguire and Stones aren't exactly pacey. So if they get beaten in the air, then you've got Kyle Walker sweeping in behind.
I think that Kyle Walker is far more likely to play if we go with the back 3. If he goes with the back 4, then I don't think Kyle Walker will play, because I don't think Southgate trusts him as an out-and-out right back in a 4. And then I would imagine that Luke Shaw will be left wing back. Do you think Kieran Trippier then at right wing back?
Yeah, I imagine so. I think he'll pick him over the likes of Reece James.
Mm-hmm. And then midfield, so obviously we are, if you look at that midfield of Jude Bellingham, Phil Foden, Jesse Lingard, Mason Mount, Calvin Phillips, Declan Rice and James Ward-Prowse, that is a vastly inexperienced midfield that we've picked there. And obviously injuries are probably the main reason for that, or they are the main reason for that. Jude Bellingham's first call up, Calvin Phillips has only had maybe 1, maybe 2 games for England. Phil Foden and Declan Rice are still fairly new. Mason Mount the same. Jesse Lingard has had a lot of England games, but not for a long time. And James Ward-Prowse, he's been dancing around the England squad for a little while, but again, not played that many games. So that's going to be an interesting lineup in that midfield, because you would think you'd probably go with 3 of those. So who would your 3 be out of that lot?
I would have Declan Rice as the CDM, and I would have Mason Mount as the sort of pivot. I would have Grealish as like a number 10, to be honest.
Well, Grealish isn't in the squad. I forget he's injured.
Yeah, so I was thinking of Euros. Probably Lingard on his form, potentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that happening. For me, it's either him or Phil Foden in that role, I think. And then up front, if he goes with the 3, you would imagine it's probably going to be Harry Kane, Raheem Sterling and Marcus Rashford would probably be your 3, which is unfortunate because that probably means that Rashford is going to have to play off the right, do you think? Or do you think you'll put Sterling out there?
I think he'll go with Rashford out on the right, yeah. We don't really have any right wingers, unfortunately.
No, I mean, we've got players like Bukayo Saka, and I appreciate that he has spent most of his career down the left at Arsenal, but he has also, I mean, at the weekend against West Ham, he did spend time coming in off the right-hand side, and that tends to be what most modern-day football teams do now, if they have wingers on the opposite flanks than that, to compare to what foot you predominantly use. So I can see Saka maybe going out on the right, maybe in one of those games, and one of either Sterling or Rashford dropping to the bench.
Yeah, I'd be quite happy for him to drop Rashford for the bench, give him a rest, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, we will obviously talk in much more detail about the England team games next week, but we do have the listener segment, which will come in after the break, where we will talk about what the listeners think is their best 11 for England. So let's get into the Premier League action, Premier League and FA Cup. So we're going to start with Brighton against Newcastle, probably the most important game of the weekend, you would say, in terms of what was at stake. And Newcastle's continued sleepwalking towards relegation it was about as evident here as it's ever been, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, they were shocking. I mean, this was pretty much their cup final this weekend, and they absolutely blew it.
Yeah, it was a horrific result. I mean, to lose 3-0 to Brighton, who predominantly don't score more than one, absolute maximum 2 goals a game, really, because they just don't take their chances. But they just made it so easy for them, didn't they? There was just nothing.
Yeah, I mean, 2 of their goals were outside the box, and they weren't really being closed down. They were, they had the time and space to just sort of look up and move into an area and hit them. Yeah,
it's for Newcastle. I mean, from Brighton's point of view, they're now 6 points away from the relegation zone. It's actually their first win since the 3rd of February when they beat Liverpool, although I know everyone was beating Liverpool at that point. But, Newcastle coming into town, Brighton must have thought, this is the perfect team to come to town when we need a win and we need to get back to winning ways and start sort of trying to claw or put a bit of distance between ourselves and the pack at the bottom. So let's start talking about the positives of Brighton. Their goal difference now is significantly better than anyone around them, which is a huge win for them, because with things being quite tight, there's every chance it could come down to that. But Lallana and Welbeck, I mean, 2 veterans of the Premier League, they're really beginning to prove instrumental players for Brighton.
Yeah, well, I think the difference between the 2 teams is that Brighton have actually been playing pretty well, but unfortunately not been getting the goals and have been losing games, whereas Newcastle haven't been playing well and have been losing games.
Do you think, obviously, we've spoken throughout the season, really, because it's a little bit like a broken record with Brighton throughout the season, whereby they played well, not got the result just because they couldn't put the ball in the net. How do you evaluate Brighton's season? Because for the most part, as I say, everyone thinks they've actually been playing quite well, and yet they find themselves thick in a relegation fight. So how do you actually kind of assess this Brighton team, and also what Graham Potter has done for them this season?
Well, I think Chris... was it Houghton got sacked because they wanted someone who would come in and play better football, and they've definitely got that with Graham Potter. He does play nice football. I mean, I think I enjoy watching Brighton more than I enjoy watching United at the moment, just because of the football they play. But the problem is, if you don't have the quality to go with it, it doesn't always happen. And I think that's been the case with Brighton. They've been playing very nice football, but there's no real end product, and they've been paying for it.
Yeah. But no, I do think that with a little bit of investment in the team, and I don't know what Brighton's financial situation is, but I guess I'd say they're not the sort of team that's going to go and blow 30, 40 million on a player. But if they can find some bargains here and there, if they can maybe find one or two really bright sparks from, say, the Championship or abroad, there's every chance, they could continue pushing up the league a little bit if they continue this sort of ethos that they're running with. Graham Potter looks to me like a good person to have at the helm for them. So
I think if they'd have gone for someone like an Ollie Watkins, I think they'd be banging goals in.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. Which is what I say. If they can find a striker who really does know where the back of the net is, and I think of someone like Timo Pukki at Norwich. Now, I appreciate that when he came up in the Premier League last time, he started off setting the world on fire, didn't he, at the start of last season? And then, much like Norwich, it all fell apart. And I just wonder with a team that's supplying him far, far better than the team than what Norwich did, I wonder whether he would actually know where the back of the net is, because clearly he does know. He did he get a hat trick against Man City or something, and then he's been scoring loads of goals this year again in the Championship. So he clearly knows where the goal is.
Yeah. I think that is what the sort of missing link for Brighton. I think it's a decent striker that is going to be that sort of last piece of the jigsaw puzzle, really.
Yeah. Let's talk Newcastle then. And obviously, the bulk of this chat in this game is unfortunately going to be about Newcastle. So apologies to any Newcastle fans listening. But the negative vibes around the club, they're just getting louder and louder and louder. And Bruce has come out and said that he's not going to quit. Newcastle have also said that they're going to stick with Bruce for now, despite the third demonstration outside of St. James's Park this season. I don't know where to begin with Newcastle after this defeat and this performance. I was talking with Josh on message, and he obviously it's difficult to disseminate context and emotion out of a message, but in this case it was very, very easy. Just how do you even put into words what that performance was and what Newcastle fans must think of their team?
I would hate to be a Newcastle fan of them. I think I've spoken about the owner obviously wanting to be out of the club, and I think that's probably one of the most frustrating things, knowing that not even your owner is really that bothered. I think in the owner's eyes, as long as they don't get relegated, it's a good season, because obviously they'll keep their value. But he has no real interest in improving the team and getting Newcastle back to where they should be, which is fighting for trophies and fighting for Europe, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think Newcastle fans would take just a bit of stability and a bit of, just having something there that they can grasp onto, watching their team play and thinking, do you know what, we're not quite there yet, but we're building something. And at the moment, I don't think they see anything like that. And there's been a lot of talk of dressing room unrest, as we know, obviously with what happened with Steve Bruce and Matt Ritchie. And there's just no leadership in that team. And I think I look at that game and nobody epitomised that lack of leadership and desire more than Jonjo Shelvey in the central midfield. And what I saw from him in particular in the second half, I mean, these are strong words, but it was shameful. It was absolutely just embarrassing, the lack of effort. He was doing that thing. Do you know when you watch games and teams are doing bad and you watch players sort of jogging around, almost like trying to give off the impression that they're working hard and closing down spaces, when in reality they're not. They're just literally wandering about the place, going through the motions, and it was shameful. It really was.
Yeah, and to touch on what you just said a second ago, I think I've forgotten exactly what I was going to say.
Was it about the dressing room unrest, or?
Oh no, carry on. I think what I was going to say. I had a great point to make. But...
That's fine, but I mean, obviously, and Jonjo Shelvey, whilst he was absolutely ridiculous in terms of what he was doing, Jeff Hendricks, in midfield alongside him wasn't much better. And two of the goals that they scored, I mean, as you mentioned earlier, Dan, two of the three goals came from outside of the box. yes, they're still very good goals. It takes a lot of skill to do that. But if you give Premier League quality players the chance to do that, they are going to find the target and hurt you potentially. And then the third goal was just it's just a joke. I mean, they got the ball, Brighton, they're knocking it around. All of their players have got 3 or 4 yards of space. The ball gets worked out. There's a gap the size of the Grand Canyon in the central midfield because both Hendrick and Shelvey are ball watching and have been both drawn over to one side. And then by the time the ball gets worked out wide and gets crossed into middle, there's 3 players in the box with like 5 defenders, and every one of them has got at least 2 or 3 yards of space. And it's a very good finish from Neil Maupay in the end, but it was just made so damn easy for him. If I'm a Newcastle fan watching that, I'm thinking I'm not even going to bother watching because what's the point?
Yeah, it was like a training exercise, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. I mean, until you remember your point, Dan, let's move on and talk about.
I did remember.
There's a light bulb.
You said something about clubs and the progress they're making. I was going to say, I think that's the most important thing to like everybody as fans is as long as your club is making progress and you can see that progress, I think as a fan, you're happy.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think I look at Steve Bruce and I see a completely broken man. I see a man who just does not know what to do. And I wonder how much does Bruce have to shoulder this in terms of responsibility? Because obviously it's very easy to get carried away and just say that it's all down to the manager. But in this case, is that a truthful statement, do you think, or is that still a bit harsh?
I think the players do have to take responsibility, but I think Newcastle have got a good enough squad that they shouldn't really be in a relegation battle, to be honest.
You think so? You think this is a squad good enough to safely stay in the Premier League?
Without their injuries, I think having the likes of Callum Wilson up front. John Shelvey's not amazing, but I think he's good enough to play in the Premier League. I don't think Newcastle as a squad should be fighting with Fulham and West Brom, etc. I think they should be, at least 10 points ahead of those clubs.
Yeah. And then I guess in terms of the overall relegation picture, I mean, if you look around them, Fulham are fighting and playing reasonably well. West Brom are at least fighting. I know they've not been getting the results recently, but they're still showing plenty of fight. Brighton have been playing well, as we mentioned. Burnley are always the side that's going to fight and scrap for everything and nick results here and there when you don't expect them to. And we've said, with Fulham playing Newcastle on the last game of the season, we sort of suggested that there's every chance it could come down to that game. I mean, the way things are going, it might already be done. Newcastle could be gone before that game even comes up.
Yeah, I mean, as a neutral, it's great when there's a relegation battle. So I am sort of glad that you've got the likes of Brighton and Newcastle and Fulham all fighting it out. But yeah, as those fans, I think it's different when you're a fan of like the top 4 and you're fighting for the top 4. I think when you're a fan fighting for relegation, I wouldn't want to be in that place.
No. I actually, as I said earlier, I was talking with Josh about this game, and I actually asked him if he wouldn't mind just compiling a paragraph or two to kind of describe what his feelings were. And I know we spoke to him, 4 weeks or so ago, whenever it was, but obviously things have got worse for Newcastle since then, surprisingly or amazingly. And this is what he wrote. He said, "This is the game that just shows everyone what our club has become. No passion, tactics, style or thought. We are no longer sleepwalking into relegation. We are heading into it full throttle. Steve Bruce has to go if we are to have any chance of staying up, which is now very slim. We need change, not just from the manager, but from the owner as well. We do not need a team who's challenging for titles or being in the top 6 in, year out. Whilst we would love it, but deep down, we all just want a club to be proud of. If Bruce doesn't go, the only man who will save us will be Callum Wilson. But the way we play is so poor, we're just a lost team with no identity and no hope." I mean, that's a very damning statement, isn't it?
Very depressing, isn't it?
Well, it probably is depressing being a Newcastle fan at the moment.
Yeah, we have engaged a community outreach program. We will be keeping in regular contact with Josh. Okay. But no, I do feel sorry for Newcastle fans because he's right. There is no identity with this team. I mean, if I said to you, Dan, what style of football do Newcastle like to play? Could you answer that question?
No, I couldn't tell you.
That's what I mean. I mean, I don't know if they're a long ball team because they've got players in there like Joe Linton and Andy Cowell, big number 9s. They've got some players that can play on the deck, but their passing at times is just not good enough. Right now, they're not a team that's just going to scrap and work for their points like a Burnley might. So, yeah, I just don't know where Newcastle are heading except down at the moment.
Well, I think that's another thing to do with the owner. Obviously, when you've got an owner that's been there, like I'll use Brighton as the example, they sacked their last manager because they wanted to play a certain style of football. So they've brought in a manager to play that certain style of football, and they're buying players but to play that certain style of football. Whereas Newcastle, you've got an owner that doesn't want to be there, so he's probably not that fussed what type of football they're playing.
No, and he's brought Steve Bruce in probably because he's cheap. He was hoping that he'd have the club sold by now. He knew that Steve Bruce was a guy that wouldn't get Newcastle, or he was hoping wouldn't get Newcastle relegated, therefore would keep the value of the club. And he knew full well that when the new owners came in, if they brought money with them, the chances are they would bring in another manager anyway, and Steve Bruce would be on his way. So it's all plans have gone completely tits up, unfortunately for them. So, but anyway, let's move on. Let's stop the bleeding for Newcastle fans. Let's talk about Villa against Spurs. A rocky week, to say the least, for Spurs. A loss last week to Arsenal, an awful performance midweek in Europe, crashing out to a team whose manager is in prison, which is one of the most Spurs things I've ever heard. But anyway, they're back to winning ways here, and it was an important win for them, this, because the vultures would have been circling from Mourinho if they didn't win this.
Yeah, and it's a good team to beat as well, because Villa are having a great season, although they didn't have Jack Grealish, and I think they really did miss him in this game. Spurs definitely needed that win. Yeah.
Let's talk about one or two of the Spurs players. Obviously, Mourinho made a lot of changes for this game in what was quite clearly a very big statement about how he felt after the game in midweek, and we all heard his comments after the game and what he said. Lucas Moura, though, a player who continues to impress. Do we think he's underrated in this Spurs team?
Yeah, I do. I think with a team with the likes of Harry Kane and Son, it's very easy to overlook Lucas Moura.
Yeah, he just seems like the sort of player that, sometimes in a Spurs team or in any team, frankly, you need a player every now and then just to take the game by the scruff of the neck and almost do it single-handedly. And Lucas Moura at times has done that. He almost did it against Arsenal. He almost did it against West Ham, and he did it here, and he was brilliant again.
He did it against Ajax in the Champions League semi-final.
Indeed, he did. What about Vinicius Junior? Threw in an old Mbappe celebration again. Got his first goal in the Premier League. Are we keen to see more of him, do you think, or is he unlikely to turn into anything, do we think?
I don't like his celebrations. He did it against...
He goes nuts for it.
He did it against some non-league team, and he did it again with a tap-in that Lucas Moura and Harry Kane did all the work for. But I've seen... I've already seen reports on Sky that Mourinho isn't interested in keeping him at the club after this, because I think that he's got a 40 million sort of buy clause after his loan is up. I don't see them spending 40 million on a backup striker. But
no, me neither. Let's just quickly talk about the penalty for Harry Kane's goal. Gary Neville on commentary suggested it was cute, suggesting that he bought the penalty effectively. I mean, he did seem to sort of deliberately step over the ball. It didn't look like an obvious attempt to sort of change and do a Cruyff turn or something like that. So what did you guys think?
I don't think he deliberately stepped over the ball. I think he missed it. I think he tried to do a Cruyff turn or something, and he completely missed it. And then he saw I think it was Matty Cash come sort of charging in, and he knew exactly what he was doing. Harry Kane knew exactly what he was doing. But, if the defender's going to go charging in like a bull in a china shop, then you've just got to ride with it. And he got his team a goal, and it was a good penalty, so can't really blame him.
No, I don't think so either. I must admit, when I first looked at it, I did think to myself, the distance between his foot and the ball in terms of how he does his step over, it made it seem a bit fishy to me. So Harry Kane is a very clever footballer, and I just wonder whether he knew that challenge was coming from Matty Cash, and whether he thought, I'm going to put myself into a position where he's going to hit me, and therefore I've got a good chance of getting something here. So I think there was an element of both. I think he was trying to get the penalty, but I think in doing that, I do think he just completely lost track of where the ball was because he was so focused on trying to wait for that contact from Matty Cash.
Yeah, 100%. He knew what he was doing. He was looking for it.
Yeah. We can't talk about Spurs without talking about Mourinho, can we? That's unfortunately the nature of Mourinho as a whole, whichever club he's at. Now, there's a huge amount of chat coming out of the club right now about the negativity that's in the camp, both the players being quite disillusioned by Mourinho and his treatment of the players, in his post-match conferences and his tactics. People are criticising the fact that his tactics are inherently defensive, and yet he continues to pick attacking teams with players who obviously are not going to be as good defensively. This is all classic Mourinho, right? I mean, this is not unusual. This is all part of the standard Mourinho pattern, but it seems to be happening quicker at Spurs than it usually does. This is second season rather than third season.
Yeah, and I was listening to Sky Sports the other day, and they were saying, it seems with Mourinho's teams, when the team loses, it's on the players. When the team wins, it's Mourinho.
And I would imagine as a player, that's going to get pretty boring. I mean, Fran, I know you're not a diehard Spurs fan, but you obviously you do watch them. You know about them. When you watch the Spurs team, when you see Mourinho, how do you feel as a fan? Listening to Mourinho effectively making excuses and blaming the players every time they lose and have a bad performance.
I have a really love-hate relationship with him, because I wasn't a huge fan when he started or when they said he was joining, but I don't know. I'm very much it's all of them. It's everyone's fault, isn't it? It's not necessarily just one person. He's there on the training ground, they're there on the training ground. They all know what's a good match and what's not a good match.
So do you think that the players will just sort of, when they hear Mourinho effectively blaming them for the result, do you think they'll shoulder it and sort of say, do you know what, he's right, it is our fault?
You'd like to think that it would bring that out in them. But obviously, it depends. Well, without going too deep, it does obviously depend on their personalities as well. But I don't know. I think initially they'd probably be angry and throw it back at him.
Yeah. I mean, for me, Mourinho's tenure at Spurs kind of lives and dies now with this League Cup final coming up. If he wins that, he buys himself time. He buys himself a way out in every argument and criticism that people throw at him. But if he loses it, he's in trouble, I think.
Is it still a good season though, do you think, or is it still a poor season?
Well, the thing is, I mean, despite all the negativity that we've just spoken about, they are only 1 point behind West Ham in fifth place and just 3 points behind Chelsea in fourth. So, it's absolutely possible that they could still end up in the top four at the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting very tight up there now, especially Chelsea are on a run, so they've moved. I mean, you boys must be looking right behind you now.
Yeah, I am concerned about West Ham, about the fact that, we're just going to let things slip. I know we've had a tough run of games and we've still got 1 or 2 tough games coming up against Leicester and Chelsea before we've got some very winnable games at the end of the season. So it's going to be tough for us, but we are punching above our weight where we are. So let's just sort of see how it plays out. But going back to Mourinho, I just wonder if is it the media that creates all these stories, because everybody loves a bashing on Mourinho, right? It's almost fashionable to hate on Mourinho when things go wrong. It's almost funny, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, he loves it as well. He loves it when he sort of loves winding up the media, doesn't he? Or winding up people through the media.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Right, let's push on and talk about Villa then before we talk about the Leicester Man United game. 23 games into the season, Aston Villa were, having a fantastic season. They were on the fringes of Europe. That was the last time Jack Grealish plays. Now we fast forward 6 games. They've lost to Leicester, Sheffield United, Spurs. They've drawn with Newcastle and Wolves. Their only win coming against Leeds. Are we sort of seeing a real visual representation of just how important Grealish is to this Aston Villa team?
Yeah. 100%. I mean, when I've watched Villa, he's everywhere. He's on the edge of his own box, waiting to pick up the ball, and he's darting forward, and he's all over the pitch when I see him play.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that Aston Villa have very much gone off the boil now in terms of their early season form was outstanding. They were right up there, and it's fizzing out a little bit for them. But if you're a Villa fan, I mean, you're currently in 10th place, bearing in mind what happened last season and their last day escape. Do you think they'll be disappointed with how their season is fizzling out, or do you think they'll still be just buzzing for, what has been a brilliant season for them, realistically?
Yeah, I think that's the key word there. I think you've got to be realistic and remember the fact that they were very, very close to being relegated last season. So to not be in a relegation battle this year, and hopefully they've just enjoyed it rather than, had to worry like they did last season. So I think that's the main thing, just enjoy this season.
And it probably does make a huge difference to the way Dean Smith sets up his team, the mentality of the team, when knowing that they aren't going down. The only way up, or the only way forward for them is up, really, because as I say, they're not going to suddenly fall into a relegation battle. So they can play with a bit more freedom, which is how they were playing for the majority of this season. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when Grealish gets back, if they can finish the season strong and make a platform for next season. Who knows? With a couple of players coming in, could they push a little bit further for Europe next year, do you think? Or is that, again, unrealistic?
Maybe a little bit soon. One player I've been disappointed with is Ross Bartley, to be honest. He started the season really strongly. I thought he was going to sort of almost fight his way back into the Chelsea team, but I completely forgot he was there.
He's hardly been spoken. Today was that match the weekend was the first time I've heard his name in ages.
Yeah. I've just completely forgot that he was there. He's not done anything since the start of the season, in my opinion.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Let's move on and talk Leicester against Manchester United. And I feel like you're going to need one of those group therapy sessions soon. You know, like where they all sit around in a circle, and then Dan's just going to be like, "Hi, my name's Dan. I'm a United fan, recovering from Jose, but relapsed and now suffering from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer." So Dan, go vent for me. What were your thoughts on this game?
How long have we got?
How long do you need?
I was thinking, we were discussing the fact that he never moves from his seat. He's always just sat there, never goes to the touchline. I think I know why. I think I've worked out why. It's because when he's sort of sat there watching his iPad, he's not actually watching the game. He's catching up on his Midsummer Murders box set.
Well, Line of Duty came out yesterday. Maybe he's hitting that up.
It must be, and then that's why he doesn't make subs, because he gets to the end of his box set and he's like, "Oh shit, we've only got 5 minutes left." It was the thing that annoyed me at the end of I turned the game off straight away afterwards, but I did watch what the players said afterwards and the manager said, and both Maguire and Ollie said that the players have played so many games, they're knackered. Yeah, we've got more than 11 players in the team, but he plays the same players week in, week out, every single game. No wonder they're fucked.
Why does he not sub?
Oh, I have no idea. That's another thing that annoys me as well, is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is probably one of the most famous super subs in the world because of what he did, when we won the treble, etc., and he scored the goal when coming on against Bayern Munich. So you would think that he would know the importance of making a bloody substitution.
Dear. I shouldn't laugh because it's going to, sooner or later, West Ham are going to do something fucking stupid and then we'll go on a bad run and it'll be the other way around. But I feel for you because, he's got, his squad is deeper. It's not, the strength in depth is not brilliant. It's not amazing at Manchester United, but it's a lot deeper than I think Ollie thinks it is. And it just seems that everything that United do, it's this sort of one step forward, two steps back, where everything seems to be going right. They're on a good run of form. They win at the San Siro midweek. Everybody's towels are up. And then they just put on, I don't know if it was a really poor display, particularly. It certainly wasn't great. But they were just absolutely outclassed by Leicester.
Yeah, Leicester they made United look like a championship team. Vardy should have scored, should have made it 4-1. But the goals were, if they'd been good goals, I'd be a bit more like, yeah, fair enough. But the goals were ridiculous. The first goal was a mixture of Fred and Maguire, just shocking. It was absolute schoolboy. If you can't pass out from the back, just boot it clear. Honestly, it was like watching the under-10s.
There's been quite a lot of debate about this, about where the fault lies here. And obviously, Fred is the one who's played the awful pass. But do you think that Maguire also needs his fair share of the blame here? Because it was there was nowhere for Fred to go in that situation as soon as he receives that, only going back towards his own goal.
100%. That goal, I would equally blame them both. Maguire can see a lot more than Fred can. He can see that he's got 2 or 3 players around him. And everybody knows Fred can't pass to save his life. So to give him 2 seconds on the ball to make a pass is never a good start. And then obviously, as I just said, Fred can't pass to save his life. So he can't make a 5-10 yard pass back to the goalkeeper. And then, I mean, moving on to the second goal, they play a 1-2, and then Tielemans just walks almost just past the halfway line to the edge of our box. Fred's hanging off him as if he's trying to tackle Akinfenwa. Just, yeah, I mean, and then Dean Henderson probably should be saving that as well, because it's not like a sort of venomous strike. It's a bit of a p-roller, but I mean, taking nothing away from it, I'll say it's a good goal. And then the third goal, when McTominay came on and he's just jumped underneath the ball. All three goals were absolutely preventable. And I actually said on my group chat at half time, when I saw that we got Southampton, I thought, oh, lovely, that's a nice, easy route to the final. And they said on the group chat, oh, you'll never beat Leicester. And I was like, well, they've only scored because Fred made a mistake. So what did he do? Went and made a couple more mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, it goes without saying, but you guys do need a new midfield. I think this, Solskjaer has preferred Fred and McTominay in that midfield pretty much all season. He's tinkered with it here and there, but he always comes back to that pairing, and it just hasn't worked. So there's been 11 trophies now, 11 attempts to get to competition finals for Solskjaer, and he's not yet made a final, which means now the only thing to play for this season is for second place. So do you think now is the time to say to Donny van der Beek to give him a real run of games in the side now to see what he can do?
Still in the Europa League as well.
True, that's true. But from a Premier League point of view, do you think it's time for Donny van der Beek to be at least given an opportunity?
Yeah, 100%. But I don't know if you obviously didn't see what Mark Hughes said. He said that Donny van der Beek's not really sort of shown like the player he should be, so he should probably leave in the summer. I was like, well, he's played like 3 games. How's he supposed to show the player he's going to be? Yeah, you can't expect a player to, not play for God knows how many, get 10 games and then come on for 70 minutes and expect to be the player that he was at Ajax. You need to give players sort of 5 games, a run of 5 games, to give them some match sharpness.
Yeah, and there's a lot to be said as well for the mentality of Donny van der Beek, because he will know that Solskjaer has zero faith in him. Even when he does play, he never gets 90 minutes. He'll get brought off like he did at the weekend. So his confidence will be absolutely shot, which is a real shame because he was a player at Ajax. There was a reason that he was being touted as going to the big clubs around Europe. So it does seem strange that United have bought him. Clearly, it's not a Solskjaer purchase. I think that's blatantly obvious now.
Well, I mean, it was through him that we scored. He did a step over. He stepped over the ball, which led to it going straight to Mason Greenwood, who put it in. I mean, I know it's easy to do, but a lot of players wouldn't think of doing that. And I think Ollie tends to play with a back 6, which is your back 4, and then he's got 2 CDMs sat in front of the defenders, which is McTominay and Fred. And none of them can turn defence into attack. They pass either sideways or backwards, which is why we struggle so much. And that's why the likes of Bruno, Martial have been struggling so much, and people have been taken out on these players. But it's not really their fault, but they just don't get the ball.
Yeah. And it's funny that I said last week we were talking about West Ham's approach to the Man United game, and I actually said at the time, would Leicester approach a game against United in the same way? And actually, I didn't realise at the time that this game was happening the following weekend, and we got our answer. I mean, whilst Leicester they are a better side than West Ham, they believe in their philosophy so much more, and they were absolutely brilliant. I mean, no team right now, even City, no team is going to want to play Leicester right now. I mean, they are got to be a real outside bet. I mean, I would imagine that City are probably favourites for the FA Cup. I don't know whether Leicester will be second or third favourites with Chelsea still in the mix, but they've got to be worth a £5 or a tenner to win the FA Cup this year, haven't they?
Yeah, well, I mean, the fact that Vardy has scored like 1 goal in 15 games and they're still absolutely flying kind of says it all, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, and nice little segue there for me, Dan, because I was about to talk about Iheanacho. I mean, again, 5 goals in 2 games now. We talked about him last week about is he the player to potentially lead the line for Leicester going forward, but he's forming a nice little partnership with Vardy right now. We don't see many sort of 2 striker partnerships in the Premier League these days, but these guys are they're looking good.
Yeah, and I'll hold my hands up because I did say that I didn't think Iheanacho was a good enough player to take over from Vardy when he eventually kicks the bucket. But I mean, it just goes to show that, give someone a certain run of games and they become a completely different player.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, carrying on the talk about Leicester here, I mean, they have become, in my opinion, the team that all mid-table teams should aspire to be. I mean, their model of not only the way they scout their players and bring in these quality players, they're sort of showing that you don't have to have this inferiority complex against the bigger teams, right? I mean, they've got a good side for sure, but they've been second or third pretty much, for the vast majority of this season. They've been there or thereabouts right at the top of the league. And you would, correct me if I'm wrong here, Dan, but player for player, you would say that Chelsea, Liverpool, Spurs, United, probably, maybe even Everton, Arsenal, probably maybe not so much those last two, they've all got better squads, player for player. Again, arguments can be made about Everton and Arsenal having better squads, but certainly the others I mentioned are arguably just as good, probably better than Leicester. But they approach every game like we are one of the big boys. You are going to play, you're going to adjust your game plan to play against us, not the other way around.
Yeah, definitely. I think sort of say hats off to Brendan as well, because I think he absolutely schooled Ollie, and I think he's done really well with that team. And I think they deserve to get Champions League spot. I feel sorry for them if they drop off again like they did last season, but I think they're a very good team and they're definitely building towards something, especially with their recruitment. I'd love to know how long they've had that recruitment and who their recruitment are, because they don't go off after the obvious signings. They go after these players nobody's ever heard of, and they end up sort of quadrupling their profit.
Yeah, no, they are, as we said before, they are the Borussia Dortmund of the Premier League. And the fact remains that in many people's eyes, Leicester are still not a top club. They're not a big club, right? They're still an overachieving side that's just sort of riding a good wave of positivity right now. But with Brendan Rodgers, they've got a manager who, outside of Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp, would you say that he's probably the best manager in the league outside of those two?
What, in terms of right now or in terms of overall?
Well, I'm just thinking about the job that he's done at Leicester since he came in. How many other managers would be able to do that sort of thing outside of Pep and Klopp? I know Tuchel's come in. He's a very experienced manager and could probably be in that conversation as well. But outside of that, I would say Brendan Rodgers is probably the next best manager in the league.
Yeah, I would say he needs to win something, because I don't think he's won anything for Leicester yet, has he? I don't think, in my opinion, just being fourth isn't really an accomplishment. Obviously, it's great, and it's great for Leicester, but if he were to win like an FA Cup or something like that with them, I know they obviously won the Premier League, but that was, and no disrespect, that was a bit of a fluke. But yeah, I mean, if he starts to get them towards, if they get to the FA Cup final, which they should do, they should beat Southampton, then I would definitely say, then yes, if they manage to beat either City or Chelsea in the final and win the FA Cup, yes, I would say that he is up there.
Yeah. I mean, I just, when I look at him and the job that he's done and how Leicester are doing and everything that's going on, and also his history at Celtic and at Liverpool, can you see a situation where Brendan might get swiped to another bigger club because of this? The fact that Leicester maybe aren't still classed as a big club, which is probably unfair right now. I just think if I was the Man United executives here, I'd be taking the money that had been used to buy Sancho, and I would want to go and get a top manager. And right now, I would be doing anything I could to get someone like Brendan Rodgers in for United, because I think he's exactly the sort of forward-thinking manager that United need.
Yeah, definitely. I would happily take Brendan Rodgers, to be honest. I think he's a manager that plays youth players as well, which I like. And United have a lot of great youth players. But I'd be amazed if he chose us over Leicester, to be honest. I think I would rather stay at Leicester.
Yeah, no, I think he probably will. He strikes me as a sort of manager that wants to see a project out. Like he wants to take it as far as it can go, and he's not obviously an old manager. He's still in the early years of his managerial career, you would say. So, no, good on him. And I think Solskjaer, there is some credit to be given there. I mean, he has stabilised the ship for United. He's given them some level of direction. He's given them a platform to build from. But for me, I feel like his job is effectively done now. I think he should sort of be thanked for his job and his contribution in putting Man United where they are. it's time now to hand over to somebody who can take United to that next level and get them back to where they want to be. So from that point of view, I think offering him a new contract would be absolutely just mad.
Yeah, and he was trying to play down the fact that we've been knocked out of another cup and saying that, you know, the most important thing is progress and United are second in the league. Problem is, you know, second place doesn't win you a trophy. And he's been in the job long enough now that he needs to start winning trophies. Otherwise, it's pointless him being there. And I just don't see him as a trophy winner. I just don't think he has the tactical know-how to know how to change a game. And I think Brendan Rodgers, like I said, he absolutely schooled him because he knew how United were going to play. And Ollie, if plan A doesn't go well, he doesn't know what to do. There is no plan B.
Well, he can't, can he? Because he's too busy watching Midsummer Murders.
Well, exactly that.
Anyway, right. Okay. Just before we head to a break, just something a bit lighter to end on the show. Andros Townsend. Did you guys hear this story about...
Yeah, I did see.
You did see this. So for those that didn't, Andros Townsend revealed this week that he nearly got into a bit of hot water with his girlfriend. I don't know if it was his girlfriend at the time or if they're still together. But anyway, his girlfriend at the time Googled his name and found a story about how he was fined for not turning up to training. So she no doubt immediately started thinking that the only plausible explanation here is that he's up to no good. You know, he's playing away, that sort of thing. Turns out she Googled a picture that was a news item from the PC game Football Manager.
It was on Twitter.
Oh, was it? It was yeah. I think Pete might have tagged me in it on Facebook, but yeah, just the conversation to have with somebody to say, oh yeah, what you've been doing. I've been seeing stories in the news about how you've not been turning up to training, and then Andros having to go, what? Like what's going on here? And then seeing the picture, which is just a screenshot from Football Manager, is just that's genius. Oh dear. Right. Okay, let's head to a break. When we come back, we will do our listener segment, run through the England 11 that you guys have picked, and then we'll introduce everyone to Ben, the Arsenal fan, and we'll talk West Ham Arsenal. See you in a minute. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the show. So let's get straight into the listener segment. So this week we asked everyone on social media what they thought or what their best 11 would be from the England squad that was announced earlier in the week. So Fran, what's our listeners been saying?
So Joe Roberts said Nick Pope in goal. And then are we presuming from that, is that like a 5?
4-1-4-1 in my opinion.
4-1-4. Okay, that's what we think he's gone for. So we've got Luke Shaw, Tyrone Mings, John Stones, and Kyle Walker at the back, and then you said 1, so just Phillips.
Yeah, Phillips CDM.
Shocking, he's gone for Calvin Phillips over Declan Rice.
Well, yes. And then in the 4 we've got Saka, Ward-Prowse, Mount, and Foden, and then Kane up front. What are you thinking?
I definitely agree with Nick Pope. I think he's definitely the right choice.
Yeah, you love Nick Pope, yeah.
I just think, I mean, I fucking hate Pickford. That's the first thing. I think he's just so overrated, and I think it's a coin toss, I guess, because I do like Dean Henderson as well, but I think that Nick Pope has done enough for Burnley over the last couple of seasons to earn a regular spot in the side if Pickford's going to be injured for a little bit.
Yeah, I would go Pickford, Pope as well.
Over Henderson?
Yeah, I just don't think Henderson's played anywhere near as many games as Pope. And Pope has proved that he's a really good goalkeeper, so I would stick with him.
I find it interesting, though, that he's not included Maguire in defence.
He's
gone for Tyrone Mings and John Stones.
I think a lot of people have watched United and not really been that interested in Maguire, but I still think he is England's better centre-back.
Yeah. Okay. And the rest of the team, I know he's got Foden and Saka. I like Saka a lot. I think he's got a really bright future. So I'd be dead. I'm really hoping at some point during these next 3 games he gets a good amount of time on the pitch for England to show what he can do.
Yeah. Shearer said, well, he basically picked out of his own, picked his own squad. He didn't necessarily pick out of what Gareth Southgate has picked. But Goalkeeper has actually been cut off, so I'm not sure who he picked. But then we've got Shaw, Stones, and Trent at the back, and then Sterling, Rice, Mount, Maddison, and then up front, Grealish, Kane, and Sancho.
I mean, this is Shearer we're talking about, so I think we can all presume that he's gone for Carl Darla in goal.
Yeah. What do you think?
No Sterling or Rashford is interesting.
Well, Sterling's here.
Oh, he's put him behind.
Grealish.
So he's gone like all out attack, and then he's left Trent Alexander-Arnold as a centre back.
And he's put Sterling as a wing back.
Yeah, I mean, putting Trent as centre back's almost like putting a striker at centre back.
Yeah, and I think I don't think Maddison and Mount will be in the same team, because I think that Southgate will prefer Henderson in there, and I think that would mean that one of Mount or Maddison will miss out, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that team would never happen in a million years. maybe against San Marino he might just play all out attack, but
and then Pete did Henderson in goal, Maguire, Stones, and Walker at the back, and then Shaw, Rice, Mount, Trippier, Sterling, Kane, and Rashford.
Yeah, I mean, that would pretty much be my team nailed on, to be honest.
Yeah, I actually suspect that's what Southgate will go with.
I mean, I'm a big fan of Trippier, so I'm here.
Yeah, I've not really seen. I don't really watch Atletico Madrid, to be honest. Other than I watched him against Chelsea, and he didn't really do anything amazing. But he's playing regularly for them, so he must be doing something right. Yeah,
I know he's obviously had a bit of time out this year with the gambling ban that he had.
Yeah, all right. Every time Trippier's mentioned, one of you brings that up.
Right. Okay. Right. I think was that everybody.
That was everybody. Thank you, everybody, for your comments.
Excellent. Right. Okay. Let's get into the show. So we are going to introduce our guest now. So please welcome Ben Keane to the show, who is an Arsenal fan. Say hi, Ben.
Hi guys, how are we doing?
So Ben, another old friend of mine from college, a bit like the other Ben we had on a few weeks ago, and we were just talking before we started recording, Ben, that you're kind of involved in the game indirectly. So why don't you just tell us a bit about the sort of stuff you were doing at Southampton and what you're up to now?
Yes, I mean, you know me, mate. We were at college. It was all football. Just always wanted to be involved in football. So I started off with just coaching. Went over to the States, coached for 3 or 4 years. Came home, did a bit more coaching. The opportunities over here aren't as good as over there. And then just sort of went towards education. So just now into post-16 tutoring. So I worked as a tutor and a coach for Southampton. Left that post, went to a college for a year, and then now just in a private academy based in Hampshire. So working with elite players, that I do the education side. So we've got a couple of guys doing degree, a teaching qualification, and a BTEC. So, you know, they train, they're full-time athletes. So they do education 4 times a week, and then they train 4 times a week as well with games on a Wednesday. So, so it's good, mate. Yeah, it's good to be involved in football. And yeah, it's just, you know, I enjoy what I do. I love what I do every single day. So
that's awesome. I mean, you know, thinking back to college days with me, you and Ben and all the other guys from college, I don't know how many of the guys you keep in contact with, but, you know, Ben's a plumber, I work in IT. You know, it's amazing how only a very select few actually sort of follow through with what they do at college into a career.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about our group, I can't think of many people that have stayed in sport, really. It's just one of those things where people go down a different avenue, find a different passion, or you know, find an alternative for income, really. I mean, I don't earn a lot. I know Wason does. So I kind of wish I went down his route, to be fair. I'm skinned. Yeah.
Should we set a GoFundMe page up for Ben after the show?
Yeah, please, if you wouldn't mind.
So let's talk about your other passion. Let's talk about Arsenal then. So obviously we were talking yesterday while the game was going on. I know you feared the worst when West Ham got off to the start that they did, and I guess it was one of those games where if you're neutral, it was probably one of the best games you've seen, certainly in 2021. But if you have any kind of investment in that game, i.e., if you're a West Ham or an Arsenal fan, it was fucking awful.
It's just like Merson summed it up beautifully at the end. It's just that is Arsenal's season, and it's kind of the way we've been for the last sort of 18 months. It's just so frustrating, but I'm kind of sitting on the fence in terms of I'm still happy with what I'm seeing. I don't think the table reflects the team that we are. But that game, it was crazy. But yeah, it's just the way Arsenal are. I mean, sometimes we're brilliant and sometimes we're absolutely cack.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we had the worst 30 minutes probably under Arteta.
Yeah,
so far.
I mean, as a West Ham fan, I mean, I was very pleased when I saw the starting lineup because it immediately gave me the impression that we were going to revert to a bit more of an attacking, open approach compared to what we did against United the week before. And whilst obviously from an Arsenal fan, I can see why you thought it was the worst half an hour because some of the defending was absolutely laughable, especially for the second goal. But West Ham were absolutely outstanding. That's probably the best half an hour of football I've seen from us all season. I
think you're right, mate. Because the best way to play against Arsenal is just to go all out attack because we don't have defenders with that much composure and kind of like level-headedness. Like Tottenham came to us and tried to sit back, and that kind of suits us because if you're going to sit back, we'll kind of try and break you down and there's not much of a threat. Whereas, as you say, West Ham just went all out, and that's just when we're uncomfortable and we can't deal with it. And that showed in a couple of games. We just can't deal with teams coming at us because we've got players like Luiz who just don't have the concentration levels that we need.
Yeah. Obviously, the pinch of the goal, or the pick of the goal, sorry, I should say, was Jesse Lingard's strike. Now, Dan, we spoke during the week on WhatsApp about how, you're sitting there watching Dan James play for Man United. Meanwhile, Lingard is doing his thing at West Ham like he is. And you suggested that you can see, a bit of a complicated situation with Lingard at the end of the season, the way he's playing.
Yeah, we were saying before that West Ham would probably sort of go for like 15 million or something, but the way Lingard's playing, I'd be amazed if United said, yeah, you can have him for 15 million. We'd definitely most likely offer him a new contract and then still say you can have him, but it'd be 30, 40 million, because I think the way he's playing, he's probably had more goal contributions in the last 5 games than a lot of players have all season.
Yeah, he has, to see him sort of turn it on in the way he has. One of the biggest criticisms about Lingard in the past was the fact that people thought that he spent too much time with his branding stuff and his social media and not enough time focused on his career. And I think he's certainly put those things to bed with his performances. And we were just, as a whole unit, we were so positive. We controlled everything. And then as soon as that third goal went in, I don't know whether it was us taking our foot off the gas or a combination of that and Arsenal, sort of kicking into gear. But I don't think anyone saw that comeback coming. Ben, did you think that you were going to come back from that 3-0 down?
I had a feeling if you get one, I think as soon as we got one, I kind of knew that West Ham would be kind of thinking, right, we've got a 2-goal cushion here.
Nerves will be kicking in here.
Let's just keep it. It's not as if it's 2-0 and it's gone to 2-1 where they probably need to push on. At 3-1, I felt like they just tried to defend, and that suits us massively. And you could see that as soon as you did push forward with Antonio's chance, again, we were shaky. And the best form of defence for us is attack because we can't defend. Over the last sort of 12 weeks we haven't, but previously we had sort of one of the best defensive records in the league, and now we've gone 12 games without a clean sheet. So I don't know why all of a sudden we just keep shipping goals. Just individual errors, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think
contributes to it massively.
For this game particularly, there were 3 players that really stood out for me. I was massively impressed with Callum Chambers at right back. I always thought of him as a centre back. I've never thought of him as a right back who can attack and put in the sort of crosses that he did. And Ben Rama, unfortunately, did absolutely nothing defensively in this game and often left Creswell 2-on-1, which obviously gave you guys a lot of joy. But Martin Odegaard and Lacazette, I thought were your 2 standout players. And we'll start with Odegaard. I mean, we see so often in the world of football when these players get signed at such an early age for a big team like Real Madrid, and then their careers just fizzle out. And for the most part, you would argue that Odegaard's career did kind of fizzle out. I mean, he spent most of his time out on loan. I don't think he's played a huge amount of games for Real Madrid without checking that. But I tell you what, since he's come into Arsenal, he's looked creative. He's looked full of energy. He looks a player, doesn't he?
Mate, he looks like Ozil, the Ozil that we kind of loved in 2015. He looks like that, and his ability to just break the lines. He kept breaking the lines against you guys, picking up that ball in between the two fours, and just finding a pass. And he's unreal. And I want him to keep playing well, but the better he keeps playing, the more likely that Real Madrid are going to want him. But I never judge a player based on their Real Madrid career. They ruin players left, right, and centre. If you look at Hazard, for example, just not playing well, I'll never judge a player based on what they play for Real Madrid, because I just think they treat players like absolute shit, really. I just want to keep him, mate, because I think you can't find those kind of players easily, the ones that can create, the ones that can see a pass that others don't. And especially with Ozil now gone, we need that. Smith Rowe can kind of do it, but I think either if we can keep him for another year after this 6 months, it will be good, because then potentially Smith Rowe can go into that role. But if we can sign him on a permanent for a good amount of money, then it's a no-brainer, because, you can't find those types of players. It's so difficult to find.
Yeah, absolutely. And bearing in mind his age, I mean, it feels like he's been around for so long because he got signed at such a young age, but he's still only 22. So he's got a long time ahead of him. Yeah,
absolutely.
And then the other players I mentioned was Lacazette, and I thought, for me, as good as Odegaard was, I thought Lacazette was at the heart of everything as well, and he underpinned everything that caused us trouble. I mean, he was so good at just dropping off the two centre-backs into that gap between the midfield and the defence. And I must admit, it annoyed the living shit out of me, because you could see it happening every single time. And despite the fact that we ended up at the end of the game with Noble in midfield as well, so we had effectively two centre-backs and three central midfielders, and not one of them could get to grips with him every time he dropped in. And he hurt us so much by doing that.
I think that's his game at the minute. Is, for me, he's the one who drops in and just holds that ball up. And if he if Aubameyang's playing, he has to score, or he doesn't influence the game. For me, if Lacazette plays, he drops in and does a lot more off the ball. He'll create, he'll cause a nuisance for the defenders. And I think he did really, really well, just dropping in, holding the ball up, and just in that interlink play. He does that really, really well, where his touch is so good and he can just bring other players in. He'll set it and spin. For me, I'd keep him as well. I know a lot of Arsenal fans don't want him, but out of the two, I'd say Aubameyang straight away.
Yeah, 100%. It was kind of ironic, actually, that Aubameyang started, and when he went off, Arsenal needed goals, and actually you ended up playing better when he went off, which was quite...
I don't know what's going on with him, mate. To be honest with you, I just think we're starting to now see the Dortmund Aubameyang, the one that's got an attitude, got a bit of a problem. He just doesn't look interested. And, as us all as football fans can't accept that. You can't accept just not trying. And he's just a shade of the play he was last year, where he basically won us the FA Cup with his individual brilliance, and he's just not even doing that. And I kind of think that's probably why we are where we are, where we've kind of lost 2-1, 1-0, drew some games. It was Aubameyang that was bringing us through last year and just nicking those goals and getting those 3 points, and he's just not doing it this year, and I don't know why. And he's captain. His whole attitude is not a captain's attitude for me, and he just, I don't know. There's something going on there. I don't know if he's down tools now. He's got his contract, but I never really liked that sort of phrase, because I just don't think professionals do that. But out of the two, I'd keep Lacazette, sell Aubameyang, get the wages off, and potentially bring in someone or promote Martinelli.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said about Lacazette, because he's been at the club a few years now, and he often has had to play second fiddle to Aubameyang in the pecking order. He was always seen as almost like the backup striker, which is probably unfair on Lacazette. And he's always got along with it. I mean, you never hear him whinging. He's been played out wide. He's played through the middle. He still pops up with important goals. So I think, he's... If he gets a good run of games in that number 9 position, if he becomes the main man and he feels like he's the main man, I think he could really flourish for Arsenal.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just don't think Arteta's probably got the bollocks to do it. I don't think he's got the bollocks to drop Aubameyang, and I don't think he'll strip him of the captaincy, even though he probably needs to. But I would love to see him. I don't think he's ever played 5 games in a row down the middle.
No.
And that's not really fair, because he does produce. And when he has come on, yeah, like you say, he's scored some really important goals. And I actually think he's a better finisher than Aubameyang. Lacazette can get 1 chance and score 1 goal. Aubameyang needs 6 to convert, especially with the chance that he's missing at the moment. So I would love to see Aubameyang dropped. because, if Pepe puts in that performance or those performances on the last 3 weeks, he don't get it back in for a long, long time. And Arteta needs to learn that as a coach is no one's indispensable. And he keeps saying these messages about non-negotiables and, no one's safe. Well, then, you need to drop people on their performance. And regardless if he's captain or if he's the best player, he's not doing it. Yeah. And it's hurting us in a minute. Play Lacazette, who deserves to, play Saka left and play Pepe right, and see what happens. And let Aubameyang come on and show that he wants to play. But I don't think he'll do that.
No. And I think before the game, if you'd offered West Ham a point, I think we would have taken it. But I think to be 3-0 up and not win is poor from us. But would you have said that before the game, Arsenal needed that 3 points more than West Ham did?
I think so. I actually thought we had a chance of top four. As optimistic as that sounds, I thought get through this, get 3 points on West Ham, get closer up to the top six. Then all we've really got is Liverpool and Chelsea, but they're beatable. And I didn't really see us losing another game this year, and we could have pushed for that top four. And I just think now, I think top four's gone. I think we now need to aim for top six, but even that's probably a stretch now. So everything's all on the Europa League again for the third year running.
Yeah, and let's talk about Mikel Arteta for a second here. I mean, he's been at the club now since December 2019. So he's been there over 2 years. Granted, we've had a lot of disruption in that time with COVID and no fans in the stadium, et cetera, et cetera. But how would you kind of summarise and rate his performance as manager so far?
I love him. I really, really like him. And I think we've invested so much in him. He's not going to go anywhere. They're not going to sack him. And, when we wanted Wenger out and we wanted Emery out, everyone was like, it's a rebuild. It's a rebuild. It's going to take 3 years. And then, I see fans now saying they want him out. And it's like, you can't have it both ways. It's going to take a long time. And for me, I think what he's done in the space of a year, just over a year, is really good. We are much better. We are much more compact. We are harder to break down. And I know some results recently, we have been a bit leaky at the back, but that just comes down to personnel and the fact that he probably hasn't got the players that he wants yet. But overall, I love him. I think he's doing a really, really good job. I think we need to give him time. If you look at Klopp, he did nothing for his first 3 years. He cleared out all of the shit from Liverpool that he didn't want. He brought in the players. They did recruit really well, which is something we need to improve on. But I think you've just got to give him time. A project is a project, and a rebuild is not a year job. It's 2-3 years, 3 summer transfer windows. Mikel's only had one. He's made some shrewd signings, and I think he's starting to clear out the players that he doesn't want. Kolasinac has gone, Mustafi's gone, Ozil's gone. So I think there's 3 or 4 or 5 potentially actually that need to go as well. And then he'll bring in those 2 or 3 that he wants, and then he can start playing the way he wants. And you can see that he wants to play out, and he's got his philosophy. And that's what we wanted as Arsenal fans. We wanted identity. Emery started to play out from the back, and then he completely bottled it and then started to play long. And we hated it. So we wanted a strong manager that says, no, this is the way we want to play. This is my philosophy. If you're not good enough, you're going to go. And I think at the minute, he's probably testing a few people like Chambers to see if they are going to be within his project. And I think he'll have a big summer ahead of him in terms of just getting some players out and getting some players in. But overall, I'm happy. I am really, really happy. I don't think the table reflects the team that we are. I think we're playing good football, but I think it can get better. But it takes time, mate. It's just a rebuild. We're not Man City. We're not Chelsea. When Chelsea finished 8th, they spent God knows how much money and won the league the next year. That's just not going to happen at Arsenal because we don't have the investment. Yeah. So I think we just got to give him time. He's a young manager. He's learning. It's his first job. He's going to make mistakes. So we've either got to give him 3 years, or we're just going to be Chelsea and rotate our managers every year. And who do we get in? Who's out there? Who's out there ready to take over?
He's brought stability to the club, right? I mean, you've obviously had a bit of an up and down period, certainly towards the end of Wenger's tenure, and then obviously Emery was extremely up and down. Arteta had to ride a rough patch. Certainly this season. I think was it this season? I think there was some calls for him to go when you were in the middle of a really bad run of form. But he's come through that. Fair play to him. There are other managers out there who can't arrest a slump, who can't bring a team back when they're playing like that. But credit to Arteta, he has brought them back, and they're showing signs of progressing as a team.
The only thing I think he needs to improve on is probably his starting lineups and potentially his substitutions. I think that's kind of down to the fact he doesn't know what his best team is yet. And I think he is testing the water with some players to see if they are good enough. But other than that, like, you're right, he's brought stability. We are better at the back, no matter how many goals we've conceded over the last 8 weeks. We are better defensively. You know, we rarely ship more than 2 goals. I think our three goals that we shipped on Sunday was the first time in a couple of months. So we're not a team that gets battered 5-6-0 as Wenger did. You know, at Anfield, at Chelsea, we're not that side anymore. We are stabilised a little bit more. And you know, as a coach, the first thing you go into a team that struggle to defend is you work on defensive play, right? And we're better at that now. And slowly but surely, he'll work at probably creating more chances and obviously finishing. But you know, he can't atone for the individual errors that have been going on recently. You know, that's just, he can't coach that out of players. And unfortunately, we've got players like Luiz who just keep making those mistakes. Ceballos, Leno, Xhaka, another one. And, you know, we're just gifting goals to people. The second goal on Sunday is inexcusable.
Yeah,
you know,
no, and
if we did that on a Sunday, maybe we get pelters.
I mean, you look at Xhaka's goal against Burnley the other week as well. I mean, you know, it's those sorts of goals that in the Premier League they cost you. If you keep making mistakes like that, it's not like a Sunday league where you can win games 6-3 and 7-4. You know, if you can see goals like that, you're gonna get caught.
Absolutely, mate. And Xhaka's one for me has got to go.
I am amazed
Luiz.
He's still there, given what's happened over the last year or two at the club.
The problem is, mate, is he is our best. He's our second best centre midfielder. That right there lies the problem. The fact that we rely on him, the fact that he plays week in, week out, he will make a mistake every 6 games.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's then going to cost you. And until we replace these players, and I tweeted this, we have got 5 to 6 mid-table players.
Yeah.
And until you get rid of those, you're not going to get above mid-table. Yes, we're Arsenal Football Club. Yes, we should be in the top 4. But the fact that we've recruited absolute shite means that we're going to be in a shit position. Yeah. You know, Xhaka wouldn't get in your midfield. No disrespect to West Ham, but he wouldn't.
No.
So why should he play for Arsenal Football Club?
No,
he's a nice bloke. He's a nice bloke, but we don't want nice players, and we don't want to keep players for sentimental reasons. We want to be winners, and sometimes you've just got to. And he's had 5 years. I'm not saying he's been there for a year and he's not quite worked out. He's had 5 years.
Yeah,
and ever since he's come in, we've not had Champions League football. It's not a coincidence.
Yeah, that's very true. But I mean, you know, for all of Arsenal's flattering to deceive at times this year, for all their inconsistency, there has still been a lot of positives. And on that point, there's a lot of good youngsters coming through. I mean, we've seen the emergence of Saka, who's been superb. Smith Rowe, who, you know, was touted as the next Ozil before Odegaard came along. You know, the future does look bright with these younger players.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And that's one thing that I feel that we do have going for us is we do have the Hale End lads coming through. We got a couple more in the youth team. Ayes is coming through, who's going to be phenomenal. Matt Smith, who's on loan, who's doing really, really well, which is good. You know, not a lot of other clubs are doing that. If you look at Tottenham, they're bringing through absolutely no one. So he's just got to add that blend, a good blend of experience, world-class players, and then having those youngsters around them. And unfortunately, we were relying on Saka too much. The kid's burnt out. That's why he struggled on Sunday. He's played too many games. We've relied on him heavily, and the kid is just burnt out. But he is absolutely class, and I'm happy he signed a new contract.
Excellent. Dan, did you want to pipe in with anything?
Yeah. I completely agree with what you said about Arteta. I think the fact that you've got the protege of Guardiola, you can't really go wrong. I think as long as Arsenal give him time, I think he'll come good for Arsenal. And one thing I do want to put to you, Ben, is Solskjaer sort of said something the other day when United got knocked out of the cup, that cups are just a bit of a smokescreen for progression. And almost makes me feel of Arsenal. Obviously, they've won the FA Cup under Arteta and they're doing well in the Europa League as United. But do you feel like that success is a bit of a smokescreen compared to how you're doing in the league?
I think you bought him time. I really do, and I agree. Because in the cup you can have an easy run in, and then I think we didn't get lucky against City because we played really well. We didn't get lucky against Chelsea, but that's the frustrating thing is we can turn up against City and we can put a result like that. You know, we've beat Chelsea this year. We beat Liverpool in the Community Shield as much as it is a glorified friendly. You know, we've beat Man United. We've beat Tottenham. We are capable of doing that. It's just the consistency. I think the FA Cup did buy Arteta a lot of time. And our 4 FA Cups over the last 6 years have smokescreened our progression as a team. And, you know, would I rather have those cups than be in the Champions League? Probably. But that's only based on the fact that we're not a Champions League club yet. And we're not ready for that because we wouldn't make it out the groups, in my personal opinion. So we're just, you know, those cups have been brilliant. You know, those days at Wembley were amazing, but we are, if you could ask me today, if I would rather have got the top 4 that will win the FA Cup again this year, I would have said top 4 because, you know, we've won the FA Cup the most times. We've won it 4 times in the last 6 years. We don't need another FA Cup because all we do is get reminded of the fact that it's not a major trophy anymore. You know, Arsenal need to be back in the elite of this country. I don't think it's going to be a quick fix, but I just think we have got the right man ready to take us forward in the next couple of years, but it's not going to be a quick fix.
Yeah. It's interesting that you know, with the consistency, because if I take West Ham as an example, and my personal opinion with West Ham is that if the fans were in the stadium, I don't think West Ham are anywhere near where they are right now because, you know, the fans are often way too quick at West Ham to get on the players' backs, and therefore I just don't think we would have the success that we're currently having. But the one thing that's been key this year, and is largely the reason why we are where we are, is that we have, in previous years, we've always turned up against the big teams. We've always turned over Chelsea. We've got good results against Arsenal. We've turned over Spurs more often than we haven't in recent years. But then we'd always go and lose to like a Brighton or a Burnley or a Crystal Palace. Whereas this year we've done the opposite. We've actually not really we've had some good performances, but by and large, we've not won against the big teams, but we've beaten pretty much everybody in the bottom half of the league every time we've played them. And look where we are. We're in that sort of 4th, 5th, 6th position right now. So if Arsenal can find that consistency, you don't need to beat those top 6 teams every single time you play them. If you can just beat everybody else, you're going to be there or thereabouts at the end of the season. So I guess from a consistency point of view, what do you think Arsenal need to recruit in the summer to get that consistency, and where are they lacking right now? Right back, Bellerin. Got to go. He's had his time. He's one of those core players that I think just has weak mentality. Cedric is okay as a backup, but I think we need to get a Tierney type right back who is Mr. Consistent. You know, I think like Chambers after the weekend.
No. It's one performance, mate. I've seen enough of Callum, and it's nothing against him. Again, nice lad, nice local lad. But he's not Arsenal. He's not good enough for Arsenal, mate. He's a Premier League player, don't get me wrong, but he's a mid-table player. So why should we keep him at Arsenal? And that's just me being ruthless because I want to be back in the top 4. I think we need someone like a Tierney right back. I'd go for Max Aarons from Norwich personally, or Ampty from Brighton. Then I think our back 4 is kind of sorted. Leno for me doesn't fill me with much confidence, but he is a good shot stopper, but his decision making is poor. But I can't see him being replaced. Centre backs wise, I'm happy with Holding, and I'm happy with Gabriel. I think they're 2 good centre halves. Mari, good on one day, bad on the next. Probably quite good to have a squad player, but I think Saliba coming back's major. I'll be really interested to see what happens with that situation because, you know, you don't spend 30 million on an 18-year-old for him to then be sold again. So I don't know, with his situation, it's a bit strange. But from what I can see, he's doing really well in France. So I'm hoping that he comes back and he's the finished article and he's ready to kind of partner Gabriel in that back 4. And for me, that back 4 will be absolutely fine. Jack has got to go. We need another centre mid alongside Partey. So a nice, good, strong holding box to box midfielder potentially, and then a new striker. So kind of just a spine really, centre back, centre forward, and a centre mid. I think that's all we need. I think the youngsters in and around that, what we have already is good enough. We've just got to get those 3 or 4 players out, bring 2 or 3 in, and I think he'll have a squad that he's ready for. And we need to start playing the same 11 or the same back four, back five every game, or for 5 games in a row. We keep chopping and changing centre halves and left backs and right backs. And how can you get consistency if you keep changing your back five? It's just not going to happen. So I just want a solid back four that stays the same until someone's potentially injured or we rotate for the Europa League.
Yeah, I think that sort of suggests that Arteta probably doesn't know what his best defensive lineup is. That's usually symptomatic of a manager that chops and changes a lot, is that he doesn't trust that team. He doesn't believe that they're going to form those partnerships if he gives them a run. And hence why he chops and changes. So, yeah, as you say, you need a settled lineup, whatever that may be, and then hopefully consistency follows.
There's a lot of dead wood there that needs to go as well, isn't there?
Yeah, I think he's got rid of most of it. You know, Mustafi, Kolasinac, Ozil. I just think that, Luis, please don't give him another year.
Willian.
You know, oh, Jesus Christ, that guy's there for ages, isn't he? Oh, God. Like, things like that, for me, is just where we've gone completely wrong. You know, how can you offer that 34-year-old, whatever he is, 210 grand a week for 3 years? That's the problem with Arsenal, is we don't have a good negotiator. I don't know why Edu, sanctioned that deal when we have a Pepe, when we have a Reece Nelson who's not even getting a look in. Why do we need to give it to someone like that? And his performance have been nothing short of a disgrace. And again, is he down tooling because he's got a big contract and now he's there for 3 years because Chelsea would only offer him 2? I don't know. But who's going to pay? He's just going to dig his heels in and say, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And again, it's just poor recruitment. It's just poor leadership from the club. But yeah, I'm hoping. I think people like Nketiah will go, Reece Nelson will go, Ceballos won't stay, Xhaka probably won't stay, Luis will stay. I reckon they'll give him another year. So again, we're going to have these inconsistencies with these back lines. You know, we've had Luis, Mari, we've had Mari Holding, we've had Holding, Luis. You can't get consistency when you haven't got an out-and-out centre-back pairing.
Yeah,
that's what you need. You need that consistency.
Excellent. Right. Well, you can feel your passion as an Arsenal fan coming through there. So thank you for delving into the world of Arsenal for us. So let's move on. Let's talk team of the week, Dan. So I've just posted mine in the WhatsApp because I was a bit late with doing that this week. So Dan, why don't you run through your team of the week first?
Yep. So I went for Meslier in goal for Leeds. Had another good game. That's twice in a row I've picked him now. He's another one that I've never really heard of, but he's having a great season for Leeds. I'd be interested to see if he ends up going to a bigger team at the end of the season.
I suspect he'll stay. I suspect he'll stay given his age. I think he's got another year or two at least to really iron out some of those sort of mistakes that he does make every now and then. And once he finds that consistency, I agree. I think he will end up at a bigger club.
I think with goalkeepers as well, obviously there's only one position, so goalkeepers don't tend to move around as much as other players do.
Yeah.
Left back, I went for Ben Chilwell. Even though you didn't even think he'd played,
I'm telling you, Sky Sports. I'm telling you now. I'm looking at it right now. Sky Sports told me that Alonso played because I didn't really see a huge amount of that game. So I had to question myself because I was like, did Chilwell play? Did Alonso play?
When you said that, I was like, I swear he got the assist for Ziyech's goal, and then I had to look it up myself to make sure I wasn't seeing things. But yeah, he had a good game. Fofana for Leicester has been unbelievable since they signed him. I'd never heard of him before, but he's another one that could end up going for 80-odd million if Leicester want to eventually sell him. Kurt Zouma for Chelsea, and I went for Callum Chambers, who had, like Ben said, is one great game. Odegaard in midfield alongside Ndidi and Lingard. It's a hell of a goal for Lingard, to be honest. And up front, I went for Lucas Moura, Lacazette, and Iheanacho. Iheanacho, second week in a row as well.
Yeah. So my team is fairly similar. So I went with Meslier in goal as well. It was a weekend where there was no real standout performances in goal from what I could work out. So I went with Meslier as well. My back four similar. So I went with Chilwell and Chambers at fullback for the same reasons you mentioned. Although I didn't see a huge amount of that Chelsea game. All the reading and highlights I saw, I thought actually he did have a pretty solid game. And he's not played a huge amount for Chelsea recently because he's been swapping with Alonso a bit. So centre backs, I also went with Kurt Zouma, another player that he always looked like he had the attributes to really succeed. And then he was farmed out on loan year after year, and it looks like it's finally just sort of clicking into place for him now at Chelsea. And even with new manager coming in, it looks like Tuchel likes him. And Soyuncu, I went for at Leicester, so I could have had either him or Fofana, but they were both superb, I thought, against United. Midfield, again, very similar. I went for Odegaard and Ndidi, and I went for Yuri Tielemans. I did think about putting Lingard in there, but I just feel like, not that it was his fault at all, but I think, when you're 3-0 up, I feel like if you don't win that game, I think as a team, you shouldn't be being rewarded too much for it, despite the fact that Lingard was still good, even when we were, conceding goals. He was still trying to drive the team forward. But I just thought that overall, I thought Tielemans had a much bigger impact on what became the win for Leicester rather than what was a draw for West Ham. And then front three, I went for Lacazette of Arsenal, Iheanacho of Leicester, and I went for Nathan Redmond of Southampton. I thought he was very, very good. Granted, it was only against a championship team in Bournemouth, but he was very, very strong in that game. So, right, let's move on to Dan the Statman. Dan the Statman.
So the question this week was, Chelsea have progressed to their 25th FA Cup semi-final. Only the fourth team to reach that many. But which three other teams have reached more FA Cup semi-finals? Ben, feel free to join in.
The mighty Arsenal got to be one, surely.
Arsenal have got to be one of them, haven't they? Yeah.
Arsenal are definitely one. They've reached 30 semi-finals.
Man United
have also reached 30 semi-finals. One more team.
I'll tell you who it isn't. Spurs.
It's not Spurs.
I can also tell you it ain't West Ham.
And it's not West Ham, you're correct.
Liverpool?
Nope.
Everton.
It is Everton with 26.
Oh, I tell you, this doesn't bode well for the quiz. Fucking hell, Ben.
No, mate, that's a guess, to be fair.
Right. Okay. So on that note, then let's head into the quiz. I'm never getting bored of that ringtone, just so you know.
Ringtone? Who are you?
I'm a 90s kid. What can I say?
Right. Welcome back to Football with Fran. Ben, do you know the rules?
I do.
Beautiful. So, I will say the player and how many teams they've played for, and then Ben, you can go first at bidding how many teams you think you know the names of.
Yeah.
So, player number 1 is Joe Cole, and he has played for 9 teams.
Oh, nice.
Jesus, has he?
Yeah.
Give it West Ham twice.
Oh, hold on, maybe 8.
I put 7.
Thanks, Dan. We just heard one of them there.
Oh yeah, sorry.
He doesn't understand the mute button, does Dan?
You asked me to write how many teams they'd played for, and you still didn't listen to me.
8.
I reckon I've only got 3.
I can go.
It's really, really annoying me already.
I can go 4.
Can you go 5?
I definitely can't go 5. No way. And I know he played in 2 countries, and I cannot get the 2 teams. I know he played outside of England in 2 countries, and it's going to annoy me. But go on then, Welchie. Go on, you get it.
Chris.
So West Ham.
Yeah.
Chelsea.
Yeah.
Liverpool.
Yeah.
And it's an educated guess, but I'm pretty sure he played for Aston Villa.
He did.
Get in.
Of course he did.
Well done.
Get in, Chris.
Yes, Dan. Come on, we're coming back.
He played in France and America, didn't he?
Yeah, so there's also Lille.
There you go.
Coventry, and then Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay. That's it. Can't remember it.
Well done, Chris. Okay, second player. How do you say that?
Is the legendary Nicholas Bentner.
Lord Bentner.
Oh, Lord Bentner. You'll always be a lord.
Fucking hell. But it's my bid first, isn't it? I think I can only do 2.
He's played for 8 teams.
I think I can only do 2 confidently.
I've definitely got 4.
Oh, you're right. Oh, wow. Okay. All yours, Ben. Crack on.
Go on, Ben.
He played for Birmingham.
Yeah.
He played for Arsenal.
Yes.
He played for Forest.
Yeah.
And he played for Juventus.
He did indeed.
Nailed it.
I don't know how. I don't know how he played for Juventus.
I didn't know he played for Nottingham Forest.
He went from Sunderland on loan to Juventus on loan.
He must have the same agent that Chipper Moting has.
Jesus. God, his agent deserves a pay rise.
Yeah, so Arsenal, Birmingham City, Sunderland, Juventus, Wolfsburg, Nottingham Forest,
Rosenborg,
and Copenhagen. Smashed it. Well done, Ben.
It's only because he's an Arsenal player.
Yeah, I did chuck an Arsenal player in there for
So the next player is, how do you pronounce it?
Mark Schwarzer.
Schwarzer. He's played for 8 teams.
Oh my God, has he?
If this is the first one that is not wrong, it's definitely 8. Ben, how many do you think you can name?
Oh my God. Mark Schwarzer, 1.
1, good.
No, I'm just counting in my head. If I've got 1, that's going to be horrific. I count his national team.
No, just
I've got 3. I'm going to go 3, and the last one is an absolute wild guess.
Okay.
And it's only the colour of his shirt that I'm going on.
I think I could probably have done 3, but with a guess as well. I'm not sure I can do 4. I'm going to have to gamble that that's not a double bluff there from Ben, and he doesn't have a third. So Ben, name him.
And I'm just doing it in his career. Did he start at Middlesbrough, or he was at Middlesbrough? I know he was.
Yeah, he's played at Middlesbrough. Yeah.
And then he went to Fulham.
Yep.
And then he went to Chelsea, I think.
Yeah, he smashed it.
He's done me with a double bluff there.
Did he retire at Chelsea? No, he didn't, did he?
No, he went to Leicester after that.
Did he?
He did, and previous to that was Marconi Fairfield.
yeah, God knows who that is.
Oh, yeah, them. Yeah.
Dynamo,
I don't even know where that is.
Dynamo Dresden, FC,
Kaiserslautern. I think they're a German.
Kaiserslautern, yeah, it's German.
and then Bradford City before Middlesbrough.
And that's a very well-travelled man. He's been around.
Yeah, he's cultured.
Got a few stamps on his passport.
Right, well, come on, Chris, for Christ's sake, pick it up.
Ben's getting me
We've
with
not
the
got high
9 games.
numbers, though, have we?
No,
This hasn't been great.
3s and 4s.
Maybe for this guy though.
This
The
guy's
next
been a
player is
few.
David James, who has played for 10 clubs.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, okay. Who's bid first?
You.
Me, isn't it? Yeah.
David James.
I'll go 4.
Oh,
Okay.
I've only got 3.
Chris, I was hoping for more if I'm honest, but okay. Ben?
Oh my God. I'm not going to be able to get 5. So, go on then.
On
You can
Chris.
have it.
Okay. West Ham,
Yes.
Shock.
Portsmouth,
Yep.
Liverpool,
Yep.
Oh,
and Man City.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've just got it
Yes,
then.
Chris.
Going to come down to the final one.
So,
Everyone should remember the Man City one because he played up front for him for a game in front of him.
Yeah. And gave away a foul.
so his teams were Watford, Liverpool, Villa, West Ham, Man City, Portsmouth, Bristol City, Bournemouth, IBV, and I don't even know how do you say that?
Kerala Blasters.
Kerala Blasters.
Koala Blasters.
No.
sounds very aggressive.
Is that Australian?
It's got to be, surely.
In the Indian Super League.
Oh.
Right, and
Yeah,
the last
never.
player you are going to have to pronounce.
Mario Mandzukic.
Has played for 9 teams.
God.
Ben, you're up first.
Played for 9. The Croatian guy, right?
Yeah.
Oh my Christ.
Christ, I don't know any of these teams. 3. 1, 2, 3. I know. 4. Oh no.
4.
I think I've got 4, and it's an edgy 4.
Oh,
Okay,
you bastard.
Chris?
You absolute bastard.
What, have you got 3?
No, I think I've got 4.
Oh.
Oh God, Chris.
The thing is, I may not even have 4, but I mean, we're at 2-2. This is. Do
I'll
I?
take
Do I?
Colossus.
Thing is, do I go for 5 and embarrass myself, or do I just let Ben take the win?
You ain't got all night, Chris. Come on.
It's all right. I can edit this out. It's fine. I'm going to say name, and Ben, I can't do 5.
Right, go on then, Ben.
But the last one is a complete guess.
Right.
Okay, so this.
You
this
said that
is,
last time and
I'm
nailed it.
I'm gonna say it last, so it gives the show a little bit more tense. All right. Juventus,
Yep.
Wolfsburg,
Yes.
Bayern Munich,
Yes.
and this is the guess because he's Croatian. Zagreb.
Yeah. Nice. Well done.
That was the exact 4 that I had. You bastard.
I just thought biggest team in Croatia. He must have played for them. Must have.
Did he say Juventus, or did I miss that one?
Yeah.
You did? Oh, okay.
So the others are Marsonia. Is that right?
Probably. Yeah, Marsonia.
Who?
NK. I think it's an amateur Croatian team.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
MK Zagreb, Dynamo Zagreb, Wolfsburg, Bayern Munich, Atletico Madrid, Juventus, Al Dahali, and AC Milan.
I'll be honest, when you said MK, I was like, shut up, as he paid for MK Dons. Well, normal service has been resumed. We are now, Dan, this is getting out of hand now. We're 4-1 down to the guests.
Well, I've won 1, lost 1. You've lost 3.
Ooh.
Way to build up my confidence, Mourinho. Excellent. Right, okay, well, it was a close game. That's the closest I've come to winning. I think at least I took it to the last round decider.
Yeah.
But anyway, Ben, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, buddy. Great to speak to you again after so many years. Yeah, please do give us a like and subscribe on all our social media channels, everyone. We have seen a real uptilt in listens over the last couple of weeks, which has been superb. So massive thank you to everybody that's been sharing us around and talking about us. It's really great to see the stats go up in the direction that they are. So with the season coming to an end as well, obviously we've got eight or so games left. We are going to do another competition giveaway at the end of the season. So do make sure you are following us on all our social media channels so that when we do announce the details of that, you will be the first to see. And all that's left for me then is to say goodbye, and we will see you hopefully all next week.
Bye.
See ya.
Yeah.